Hello and welcome to today's History Upper Ohio Valley. I'm your host, Bob Connors, and we're going to have a great discussion going on in a minute, but I wanted to ask you before we start, have you ever thought about becoming a congressman? In your life, just where you live, you decide, well, I'm going to be a congressman, and you run out, learn how to do that, jump in a race, and all of a sudden you're a congressman, you're in Washington, D.C., and you say, oh, this is what it's about. Have you ever thought about that? Well, we're going to talk to someone who knows exactly how that happens. And I happen to know this gentleman, U.S. Representative, Ohio 6th District.
Bob, good to see you.
Congressman Bill Johnson. Welcome.
Honored to be here. Thank you.
It is really great. You know, I was thinking about this and I thought, I remember when you decided to announce and went through what I just discussed there in Steubenville, and I was in that room, and what has happened in these years since then has been phenomenal.
I remember that day like yesterday.
Do you?
I remember who was in the room. I remember you being there. I absolutely do. And I can tell you, Bob, that it was a surreal moment, because I never in my wildest imagination would have thought that I'd be doing this. This was never part of the plan. No. You know, I served for 26 and a half years in the United States Air Force. I was a small business owner. My wife is from Ohio. I traveled around the country in my military career. But when we settled in Northeast Ohio, politics was the furthest thing from my mind until the 2008 election. And I said, wow, I'm concerned about the potential direction of our country. And so I started looking at how to get involved in the presidential election as a volunteer. And lo and behold, someone said, well, look, a farm boy, military veteran, small business owner, have you ever thought of running for anything yourself? I thought they were talking about county commissioner or dog catcher or something like that, but no, it was kind of crazy. It was kind of crazy. Yeah, but I'm honored to be here today.
Well, I'm really happy to have you, and I got to tell you that that moment was important to me too. I remember it very distinctly. It was kind of surreal, and I remember all of the people who were in that room. I still do, so that sort of tells us something, doesn't it?
It does.
And since that time, it's been about 10 years that the country has gone through all kinds of gyrations.
I'm not mistaken, some of those people aren't with us anymore.
Some of them aren't. Some of them aren't. They
God rest
unfortunately have moved on to greener pastures in heaven. And
there you go.
But they're great. They were great people.
Absolutely.
And I still remember them as if they were sitting right here, right now.
Yeah, I do too. I do too.
But I wondered, before we really start talking about a few things, about when you went through what you just discussed and you find yourself getting up, and I called you that morning and said, hey, Congressman, you made it. And you went off on talking to a lot of people and being busy, and all of a sudden you end up, here you are in Washington, D.C. What was going through your mind when you just ended up there and you said, oh, I'm here?
Well, I can tell you, they do not have, Bob, they do not have a how-to book on how to be a congressman. I mean, you have to figure it out, and you have to figure it out really, really quick. And I'm going to tell you that I believe that it's largely a factor of surrounding yourself with really, really good people. I was fortunate. My chief of staff was the first person that I hired. He's a strong man of faith, a strong family man. He helped put the team together. And we have, I think, a lot of the accomplishments that we've been able to attain have been because of the team that we built. And thank God that God directed me to people that knew how to run the maze and the gauntlet in Washington, D.C. to actually get things done for the people that I represent.
Yeah, and that's the difficult part, is finding out how to get things done in that place.
It is. It is.
I mean, and that's one other thing I wanted you to maybe just take a second on. You go there and you have how many people in Congress?
435 members of the House, and then you have the 100 senators, so it's 535 elected officials.
So, and you want to do something, you have to take care of all those people to make sure you get enough of them to join you.
That's true. I mean, and you can't get 5 people to agree on what color the sky is or whether it's raining outside on most days. So it is a cat and mouse game, trying to figure out how to get people to agree with your position on whatever the issue is.
Well, I just wanted to bring that up because I think that many people, myself included, just really can't get a feel for how difficult it is to go into that environment and get something done. It is not easy.
Yeah, you know, Bob, I found though, if Ronald Reagan said something one time, he said, "There's no limit to what a person can achieve if they don't care who gets the credit." And that's the attitude that I go to Washington with. It's not about getting a pat on the back or a feather in my cap. It's about doing the job that the people that I work for. I work for my constituents. They don't work for me. That's the way I view the job. And so I'm not afraid to talk to Republicans or Democrats about the importance of an issue that I have in my district, my state, if it'll help get the job done. That's why I think we've been successful. We've had 8 pieces of legislation signed into law.
That's really remarkable. That is. There are many
And that's
people who
under
don't get
President
that.
Obama and President Trump.
That is amazing. Coming back to Ohio here, there was recently you were at a meeting in Bel Air on the water plant for Belmont County.
Right, right.
And I just wonder if you have a comment or two about what that's about, how it's going to affect the area.
Oh, it's going to be big. Belmont County was awarded a $60 million combination low interest rate loan and grant program to completely redo Belmont County's water system to provide both for the city of St. Clairsville and the outlying areas. That's critically important, Bob, because you know we've got the promise, and I believe it's inching closer and closer every day to the largest petrochemical facility in America, not just in our state or region, but in the entire country. That ethane cracker plant down at Dilly's Bottom with PTT Global Chemical in Dalem, that is a big, big deal. And that facility and all of the business that it's going to bring to Belmont County, having a viable water system that's up to standards and capacity to meet the demands was very, very important. And I was very happy to support that and engage with Secretary Chow, with the, that was a USDA grant to engage with the Secretary of Agriculture, Sonny Perdue, and others to make sure we got that grant across the finish line.
Yeah, that is a big deal. That's
deal.
a very big deal. And since you mentioned the cracker plant, that is also an enormous thing for this area. I mean, it's just enormous. Can you give us a minute or so on that?
I can. We are inching closer and closer.
Is?
Yeah, we're inching closer and closer. You know, they've put several $100 million into the project already. That's between engineering and design and now pre-construction site preparation work. There's actually dirt being moved down at the site. They have selected their contractor and they're in the final stages of determining their financing. Like I said, it's a $10 billion project. They're bringing a portion of that money to the table between the two companies. One's a company from Thailand, PTT Global Chemical, and the other, Dalem, is from South Korea. But they've got to raise about half of that $10 billion. And to do that, they need some help. And we've met with the Energy Secretary and the Commerce Secretary. The Trump administration is firmly behind this project, and we're very, very excited about the efforts that the administration is going to try and help advocate for them to get the funding that they need from some sources overseas, some sources stateside here. But we should know something in about 5 months.
So they've done all of this initial work, spent all this money, and they're getting ready, but they're still not ready to announce.
They're not going to announce. And you know, when you're spending $10 billion, remember this will be the largest chemical plant, the largest petrochemical facility in the nation. And so spending that kind of money, they're going to dot every I and cross every T before they make that final announcement.
I would imagine so. And I think that's proper. That's what should be happening.
I think it's absolutely the right thing to do, because when they do open the door and say, let's go, it is Katie bar the door. I mean, it is going to be a lot of activity. You're talking about, and I've heard various estimates, somewhere between 6 to 10,000 construction workers, 6 years, with anywhere from 600 to 1,000 permanent workers once it goes operational.
Wow.
But Bob, that's just the tip of the iceberg. Imagine the manufacturing resurgence in our region here with plastics and textiles and those that would need the ethane and the ethylene and polyethylene and polypropylene that'll be coming out of that plant.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. I'm pretty happy about it.
And see, we live, one other final thing, we live within about 5 hours of roughly 70% of America's polyethylene and polypropylene demand. So with our interstate system where it is, I mean, it couldn't be positioned any better.
Yeah, we've got the right location.
We certainly do.
So I think you'll keep up the good work on that.
Thank you, Bob. Well, I will.
I know you're working hard on it.
Yeah.
I know that it's slow and difficult to make things happen, but I believe you're going to make it happen.
I think I am very optimistic about the opportunity here.
That is great. You mentioned President Trump, and that was one thing I wanted to ask you is, over the first 2 years and the 2.5 years, how would you grade him, and what do you think of what he's doing?
Well, it probably doesn't come as a surprise to you. I give him an A+. You know, I think he's keeping campaign promises. I think he's doing exactly what he told the American people he was going to do. He said he was going to save the coal industry, and he did that in the first weeks and months of his administration. One of my 8 pieces of legislation was one that he signed to undo that onerous stream protection rule that had nothing to do with protecting streams. It was all about trying to shut down underground coal mining in America under the Obama administration. So I was grateful that the president did that. But you look at the regulatory relief, and you look at the tax relief, look at the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. Look what he has attempted to do with border security and stopping the flood of drugs and illegals coming across our southern border. Anybody that has been there, Bob, that can't see that that truly is a humanitarian and criminal crisis trying to come across our southern border, they just don't want to pay attention, because it absolutely is a crisis. And the president has done everything that he can do, I believe, to try and work with our Democrat colleagues to get this done.
Them to help
but
out.
They are determined not to give the president a victory.
Well, this is a shame, because I'm sure you're familiar with the trafficking that's coming across the border. Can you speak to that for a minute?
Absolutely. You know, in 90% of the heroin in America that's killing our friends and neighbors, and sometimes our family members, is coming across our southern border. 90%. In 2017 and 18, we saw a 73% increase in the amount of fentanyl coming across our southern border.
Wow.
Now, if you know anything about fentanyl, and for your viewers that you probably do, but for your viewers that don't, fentanyl is a drug that the 19 grams, about the size of a restaurant salt shaker, will kill 10,000 people. 19 grams to kill 10,000 people. Now, not too long ago, we confiscated 200 plus pounds of fentanyl coming across our southern border, being smuggled across. Now, you do the quick math. I know how to do American math, but grams and European metrics.
It's a lot.
Yeah, but I can tell you that it would have killed a lot of people.
It is very serious, and also the people who are being turned into sex slaves is a part of that trafficking. That's unbelievable.
That's one of the most mind-boggling things about this. Everybody is screaming about what's happening to the children on the southern border. We are taking care of those children to the best of our ability. But here's what's happening. Most of the children that are showing up at the border, many of them are adolescents, right? Young people. The children that are showing up, Bob, many of them are showing up here being passed off as children of a group of people that say that they're parents. but it turns out they're not their parents at all. They're human traffickers, coyotes, that are trying to use those children as an escape route to get across the border, and then they disappear. Those that have claimed for asylum in our country, it's a staggering number. You know, they come through, they get their asylum court date. Do you know what the percentage, Bob, of people that never show up for their court date?
No, what is it?
87%.
87%.
87% of them never show up for their court date. They just meld into American society, and we have no idea where they are and what they are doing. And we've now got the capability with DNA swabs to be able to tell fairly quickly whether a person is a parent of a child that they've got with them. My goodness, and when we find out that that person is not the parent, that it's a pedophile or a sex trafficker or a coyote just trying to get across the border, we have a responsibility to protect that child and separate that child and adult and deal with that adult on the criminal basis upon which we discovered who they are.
Yeah, it's pretty sad. So hopefully, I think that he is working as hard as he can and doing everything possible. But on another part of that is the wall, and he promised to do that, and he's been working really hard at it. What's your feeling in Congress about getting that done? I
think we're going to get it done. I think we've still got some work to do. You know, the president was given over $4 billion in a border security package a couple of weeks ago. That was fun to watch, by the way, to be a part of that.
Yeah, I'll bet.
Because the Speaker Pelosi was unable to hold her conference together because she is being driven. The Democrat Party is being driven so far to the left. You saw it during the recent Democrat presidential debates.
Oh, really? Yeah.
And you see it every day on the news. So they would not work with her, and ultimately, to get Homeland Security funded, she had to go back and take up the Senate's version of the bill, and we were able to pass it with help from moderate Democrats. So I think we're going to get it done. You know, back when the government shut down, a lot of people don't know this. I'm a member of a group called the Problem Solvers. It's a group of both Republicans and Democrats that put our political ideology at the door, and we focus on areas where we agree. During the last government shutdown, I was called to the White House as a part of that group, Republicans and Democrats. And the president sat around the table and he said, "What do you expect me to do? We've got to secure the border." And I was amazed at how many of my Democrat colleagues had no idea what the president's plan really was. They thought he was going to build a wall that stretched from the Gulf Coast to the Pacific Ocean over near California. That's not what he is intending to do at all. It's 240 some miles of physical barrier with money for humanitarian assistance for those that are coming to the border, with more judges to adjudicate the asylum cases and those cases that require legal action, technology to help secure the border. So when they heard that, they said, well, this makes sense. How can we not support that? They were instrumental then in helping us get the government opened back up. So when you get all the parties together, and that's one thing I like about this president, he'll sit down at the table and he'll negotiate with anybody that's willing to roll up their sleeves and get the job done.
Yeah, that's what hard work does, and I think he's been pretty successful. But the media spun that story that it's going to be a medieval wall from one end to the other.
That's not what the president has in mind at all.
I know.
We're not. All you got to do is look what he's doing to advance America's position in the global economy, strengthening the position of American workers and positioning America to be treated fairly in the international trade arena. All you got to do is look at that to know he's not trying to become an isolationist. He wants America to take its rightful place as a leader among nations, and we need that leadership position at the head of the table.
Oh, I agree. I think he's spot on with all of that. Yeah. He really is. I had another thought here. We already talked about the cracker pan, didn't we? Did you have a chance to watch the first two Democrat?
You know, I didn't. I was voting during one of them, and I was driving back from D.C. During the second one. But I did see the lowlights. You know, not the highlights, but the lowlights. Because I can tell you, you know, how many people want Medicare for all? You know, and every hand goes up. You know, it boggles my mind that that the group that's trying to run for president of the United States are being pushed so far to the left. We're being driven by the extremes outside the bell curve, outside the first standard deviation, Bob. The people underneath the bell curve that understand that as Americans, we've got a very diverse culture. We have to find a way forward for everybody that works for everybody. But to do that, you got to be willing to come to the table. The extremes are not willing to come to the table with substantive ideas. When you've got the Green New Deal, you know, 90-something trillion dollars to implement. When you've got Medicare for all, that would completely destroy the current Medicare system for millions of Americans and get away with private, employer-based health insurance. You're talking about complete chaos with health care.
It wouldn't be Medicare for all, it would be Medicaid for all.
You're right.
That's
something worse.
after.
Look at the lines in Canada and other places throughout Europe. Why do they want to come to America for health care? Because they have to stand in line and wait sometimes as much as a year to get a procedure done. Now, what happens if you've got a form of cancer that's not going to let you wait a year, Bob?
Oh, I completely
That's bad
agree.
news.
It is.
That's a death sentence in some of those countries.
It is.
That's not what I want for my children and grandchildren. It's not what I want for yours.
And I'm not sure that the people driving this are concerned with our grandchildren. I think they're looking for right now satisfaction. Those Democrats in that debate said that they would give Medicare to all of the illegal aliens too.
Absolutely.
You
You can't make that kind of stuff up.
It's unbelievable.
No, and we know that will not work. It is not sustainable. You can't do that in America's system. That's not the way we're designed.
Yeah, it wouldn't work anywhere in the world.
And it wasn't. Other countries have tried, and they have failed miserably at it, by the way.
Yeah, that's pretty obvious, but we'll keep that good fight up too. What's going on in Congress now? Are you working on anything particular?
Oh, absolutely. You know, every day I travel up and down this district. You know, the one thing I'm not hearing anything about?
What's that?
I'm not hearing them say put Bob Mueller back in there and continue investigating this Russian collusion deal. What I'm hearing is, hey, we're glad that that's over. Let's move on. Let's start focusing on the real issues that are important to people in this region of the country. Let's focus on energy development. Let's focus on job creation. Let's focus on the opioid crisis. Let's focus on expanding broadband in unserved and underserved areas throughout our region. Those are the areas that I'm focused on.
Yeah, what's the broadband? How's that coming along?
Broadband, we've got a long way to go. I had a meeting about 3-4 weeks ago with the FCC chairman, Chairman Ajit Pai. His wife, by the way, is from Youngstown, so he's very familiar with rural America. He agreed with me when I told him, I'm not happy with the progress that we're making. We've been talking about this now for about 8 years. We've put billions of dollars toward it, but I don't really see any rubber on the ramp. I don't see any real...
Do you know what the holdup is?
Well, that's because rural America is very complicated. The rural-urban divide is very real, Bob. The infrastructure is not there. It's not a one-size-fits-all. It's not a silver bullet solution. Some places need cellular. Some people need hardwire. Some places are going to need satellite. Now you've got 5G on the horizon. That's an upper part of the spectrum. It propagates very, very fast, but because it propagates very, very fast, it also has limited range. And so you're going to have smaller cells, but more of them. So a lot of that technology has got to get put in. But there is not a day in a week that goes by that I don't talk with officials in Washington about what we're going to do to advance broadband access to the underserved areas in my district, and some of them unserved.
Anything else that the people in the district are talking about that comes to mind?
Oh my goodness! I think broadband and opioids is one. Those are two of the most predominant issues that I get. I don't go anywhere that I don't talk to business owners, though, that don't say, "Please tell the president and you guys thanks for the tax cuts." Now, what do we do to make those permanent? Because those tax cuts have enabled businesses to reinvest, to grow, to expand, to hire more people, to start up new lines of business within their manufacturing operations. So I haven't found anybody yet that wants to give their tax dollars back to Washington.
I agree, and I don't know why anybody would if you look at what it did for this economy and cutting the regulations.
Yeah.
It is irrefutable
Yeah.
that this is a boom to everybody in the country.
Bob, we got the lowest unemployment we've had in 5 decades. We've got more women and more minorities working than we've had in decades. Right now in Ohio, our unemployment rate is at 4.1%. I mean, you get, it's.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You can't go anywhere without seeing help wanted signs. Anywhere.
I'm glad you said that, because there is one other thing that when I talk to business owners, workforce development is a big, big issue. Making sure that parents and high school students know that they don't necessarily have to pursue a 4-year college education to earn a good living in this part of the country. Manufacturing, all kinds of jobs here in our region, plumbers, pipe fitters, the trades, electricians, construction workers. It's booming like crazy. And back to that, I think, cracker plant. When the workforce starts going to work at that facility, we're going to need all the workers we can get.
Yeah, this would be a good time for people to be thinking about getting trained.
Absolutely.
It would be. Well, anything else you'd like to share with us?
Oh my goodness, we've talked about just about everything that I can think of.
Well,
I am bullish on America. Bob, I think you've heard me say this before. The day George Washington raised his hand to take the oath of office, politics became just very complicated and in some cases dirty business here in America. John Adams and Thomas Jefferson did not trust George Washington, and so they sniped at each other. And thank God they didn't have a 24-hour-a-day news cycle and social media networks.
It probably would have killed America.
Probably, it might have.
Really.
But we've got to figure that out, because in today's world, when people ask me what is the thing that keeps me up most at night, it is the issue of the digital connecting of the world that has taken place. Today, the problems are coming at us at light speed, either through the social media networks or the 24-hour-a-day news cycle. And it just gives us the feeling that these problems are stacking up and that they'll never get solved because they don't seem to be getting solved. The truth of the matter is, in our system of government, those problems have been there all along. It just, from generation to generation, we manage them. There is no perfect system. Ours is close to a perfect system on this planet that you're going to get. I don't want to live anywhere else. But the private sector, free enterprise, market-driven system in America is about as perfect as you're going to get. And that is fraught with its own problems. But today, they seem to be mounting up. My advice and my encouragement to the American people is that about every 100 years, we reinvent ourselves and we make the right decisions. We did it in the mid-1700s. We did it in the mid-1800s with the bloody Civil War. We did it in the mid-1900s with the anti-Vietnam War movement and the Civil Rights movement. We're on the front end of that redefinition again. We've always made the right decisions, and I think we'll do it again.
I agree.
Yeah.
and I know you're working on that.
Absolutely.
Congressman,
God bless you.
thank you. God
Pleasure
bless
to be
you.
here, Bob.
And we will see you next time. Thank you for joining Bob Connors and, excuse me, my today's history of the Upper Ohio Valley. And the folks here at ESV Teleproductions do a great job for you, and we thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.
God bless.